Bad and the Guilty is recorded live with the men and women of law enforcement. All suspects are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Now, here's your host, Iredell County Sheriff Darren Campbell.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do?
Welcome everybody. It's Wednesday at 3 o'clock, so it's time for the good, the bad, and the guilty. I'm Sheriff Darren Campbell, and we're gonna have a fun time today. It's the last show you'll hear before Snowmageddon. Is that not what it is?
Yeah.
Everybody's calling it so. But today I'm joined, as you can tell, both these guys have been, as you can see on your screen, both of them have been here with me. Patrick Dixson, which is a sergeant with our Special Victims Unit, and Adam Dillard, which is our attorney here at the Sheriff's Office. And also, I guess I need to throw in, you're also a law enforcement officer.
Do a lot of that.
Really? When's the last time you've arrested anybody?
I was involved in a lot of law
You have
enforcement
been-
activities over the weekend.
You have been involved, and that's one thing we'll talk about. Hey, let's give a shout out before we get into what we're going to talk about today. Well, actually, I'll give you a teaser. So if anybody wants to text somebody, call them. You can obviously find us everywhere. If you want to follow us on Facebook, you can send us a message in our comments. 100.7 FM, 105.9 FM, 1400 AM, Facebook, X, WSIC app. And also, you can find us on X, and I believe I said that. Yeah, I did. So there's really not a way that you can't hear us. But if you come up with something, shoot us comments. The best way, we'll try to watch them as we go through the show. And today we're going to talk about, I think, everything that's for the last week, at least with us, has been, is pretty much the search for the missing child that we had in the eastern part of the county. So we'll talk. We had a lot of questions about that. It's been a lot of stuff. It ended up in the end. It was a good conclusion. Was able to find him Saturday. And but we'll talk about why we do those, how we do those, why we ask for different assistance. But first, I'm gonna give a shout out now. Both of y'all, I'm gonna give you a guess. This is a question. This is a test. Who is the sponsor of the show?
It's on your screen. Harrison's Workwear.
I'm impressed. Patrick, did you know that?
I was. I've done the read before.
Okay, that's good. Well, hey, you know everybody, and every one of us I know has shopped at Harrison. But from the job site to the rodeo to the backyard hammock, Harrison's has you covered. They're the Southeast leader in Carhartt area workwear, and nobody has more in-stock work boots than Harrison's. And they'll get you ready to go boots scooting in from the Western favorites like Cinch, Rock, Roll Denim, and Wrangler. But make sure you visit their Mooresville location or shop online at harrisonsusa.com. And it's our home for work, Western, and now. And I cannot say, with the storm coming, if you need a set of winter work boots, cannot think of a better place to go.
I'm sure they'll have some type of
Or
snow
just
gear
boots
there
in
for you.
general. You know, back when I was growing up, and I'm not even gonna say what our
Back
mothers
when.
used to do. Does anybody know what the bunny bread bags used to be used for?
I don't even know what that is.
That's
Patrick.
No, that's way before our time.
You'd have an old set of boots, and your mama make you tie the plastic or the bread things on your foot, and then you put them in the boots. So it's waterproof.
That sounds like it was very useful back then.
Interesting.
Probably shouldn't have said that. That was a long time ago. But anyway, all right. Well, and as y'all guys know, and we'll take our breaks. We got about 5 minutes, so let's just get right to it. So Patrick
Yes, sir.
and Adam, I'll direct this at both of y'all, but I guess really let's just go ahead and start. Everybody knows who we're talking about is Gideon Ferguson, and the call we had with the missing person. I believe it was last Wednesday.
Yes.
It's been busy. It's hard to believe it's already a week now. And basically set it up as the deputies were called to a potential missing person.
That's right.
His grandmother dropped him off at about 3:30, and his mother come home at around 4:30, something like that. Found him missing, and called the deputies. Obviously, we were glad she went ahead and called because it was just something different.
Right.
She had noticed his clothes had been changed. He never does that, change clothes, and noticed also that his cell phone was there. And a 14-year-old young man that does have access to a cell phone would be hard to lay that cell phone down and just be gone.
Right.
So obviously she was concerned, but the biggest thing with us, and she called us, we responded, the deputies were able to recognize that. So at that point, we started, I guess, getting our ducks in a row with our searching and our stuff like that. But one of the biggest things was up against one. It was fixing to be the coldest night or the second coldest night this year, which is going to be, I looked back, the temperature's about 15 degrees. And I guess, 15 degrees for the next 2 or 3 nights, I think, are real low. So obviously, not something nobody, I mean, I've said it before, I don't even think an Eskimo would want to stay out there. But to have a young boy, and we couldn't tell he had coats, we knew he didn't have no communications. We didn't know at that point had he freely left or whatever. We felt confident that, you know, most likely he had left on his own, but we wasn't sure. And you can never leave no stone unturned.
Right.
So Patrick, I guess, and Adam, or you jump in wherever, but Patrick, you've been one of the first ones after our patrol guys. We call our dogs. We start, because I remember it was late at night. We were still working it, but
Right.
what are you looking for? And also, you have special experience in this. One, you've been a sheriff's officer for many years. The other is you're over our Special Victims Unit, and it's no big secret. Obviously, that's one of the biggest things we worry about. Was he kidnapped? Did he communicate with somebody online? Was he picked up?
Right.
So that's where your specialization and your team comes in, along with everything else. So let's just start it from that evening or the next morning after search, whatever.
Right. So the first question is if he left on foot, if he was picked up in a car, if, there was forced entry to the house, if this was something that was, willing or non-willing, or, what's going on with that. So obviously we need to kind of figure out what evidence points to what in these circumstances, right? So we didn't have any signs of forced entry. Didn't look like anybody broke into the house. So then that kind of opens up a little bit of different avenues on that end. Obviously with the phone being left, that's really problematic for us as investigators, because that's an excellent resource for us to track. And just like you said, Sheriff, that is uncommon. I mean, if anybody has a 14-year-old, 13-year-old teenage kid, that's about the last thing they want to separate from, right? So then obviously that brings in some new challenges. But the first thing that we did, I believe, was just go ahead and get as many boots on the ground trying to look for him on foot. We got the canines out there.
Yeah, that's great, and you did. And I was sitting there looking at a little bit of my notes. You're right. People don't understand we really heavily invested in, for one, and there's our canines. In addition to Project Lifesaver, that didn't come in here, but also when we say drones, it's not just for the eye in the sky, which it is, but it's also for the thermal imaging. And basically, if you don't know what that means, it's basically, especially as cool as the temperatures was going to be, we can fly those drones and look through. Now that there's not a lot of leaves on the tree, as the sun goes down, heat will show up just as a white or red light, whatever. But we can find it, of course, along with deers and rabbits and rabbits, squirrel, any of the dogs, everything else we found. But we've only got an infinite, especially as cold as it is. We was worried, especially, it's no big secret. He's only about 110 pounds. He wasn't a big individual. No. And we're worried about, we're looking at, I would hate to guess how much acreage. It is very rural, wooded. It's been logged before, so it's got a lot of brush around. And we're trying to use that drone at trying to find heat source to match that child.
Right. Yeah, so with the drones being in the sky, obviously you do have some cameras that just kind of pick up exactly what your naked eye would see. With this particular case, it was reported as, the darkness was hitting, so that wouldn't have been overly helpful, but we still put it up in the sky, right? Thermal imaging is what we'd primarily be looking at in that circumstance. Unfortunately, we didn't have much luck that night to find anything that would lead us to get in. But, again, that's not going to stop us just because we missed out on one particular lead. We're going to keep following whatever leads we can. Any string that prevents itself, we're going to pull.
And Adam, I guess we'll take a break in about a minute, but real quick, I want to make sure I get you at least in the first part. And then we've got to worry about legality parts. We got to worry about how we classify this. We got to remember about ages. We got to remember about certain things that we can post on social media. And we'll get back a little bit in Facebook and how we go about that, which is one of our biggest tools initially. And we can get anywhere from 1,000 shares, but you as an attorney have to look over and make sure that we don't overstep or do something that's going to hurt the investigation or something that legally we're not allowed to do.
Well, you got to remember, we operate off of facts and evidence, not assumptions. So bring all the equipment to the scene, as Patrick mentioned. When we're out there looking, at that point, we're not taking into account really the legalities of age. We're really working on trying to, follow the evidence and work on finding someone. So the legality part of it will come back, towards the end when we find out more about this individual's particular information.
Well, let's hit that back. We're going to take about a 2.5 minute break. We'll be back. Y'all follow us on Facebook. Send some comments. We're here to read them. Welcome back to the good, the bad, and the guilty. And obviously, y'all hate that first segment's fast, and we got one more. And but Adam, I believe we left just making sure. I think you was commenting before we get back. Make sure that we follow certain things. Make sure we don't miss evidence that may be used later in court orders, search warrants, or whatever. So even though it's just a missing persons and whatever we feel under the circumstances, we have to be able to document what we do, and basically. Every I has to be dotted and every T has to be crossed to make sure that we're right when we pass it on. It's not just patrol. It's not just drone pilots. It's not just tracking dogs and handlers. It's also in the investigators. This is the initial response. And then we've got to make sure that we're able to carry on the other inside the office, and we'll get into that a little bit with the Federal Bureau of Investigation and things of that nature. But I guess
Well,
a little bit on that.
I think, well, to start, to our knowledge, we have a missing person, correct? We have a missing person. We have to treat it as such. So then we just have to follow the facts and the evidence. As the case moved along, we learned more information, and that additional information pointed us in different directions, and we got partners involved, and they helped do a lot of deep diving. And Patrick has a lot of experience with that. And Patrick, can you explain more into what was actually done prior to learning to get to the legal side of him being a juvenile? Right. Then when we start the investigation, we're not looking into that. We're not looking to whether he's an adult or juvenile. We're trying to find him. Right. So what did we do to try to find him? What did you guys do that as far as digital diving?
Right. So just to piggyback off what you're saying in terms of legalities, the question in a lot of investigations ultimately becomes, do I have the legal authority to do A or B or C, right? In certain circumstances like this, you have an exigency. There's a 14-year-old child that's potentially out in the woods, or whatever else may have happened. So you can kind of articulate why you did certain things. Right. But in terms of in this particular investigation, after all the K9, the drone, everything that was on the ground, that was resumed the very next morning. That was just a break was taken in terms of maybe letting the track kind of settle or anything else.
When we maintain a presence, I know that the dog handlers and patrol was out there, and I can't remember exactly at what time Iredell Search and Rescue was touch base with, I believe, that night. So we started even that evening to continue on.
Right. But even on top of that, then you meet with the family. He's a teenage kid. As you can imagine, you've got your phone, which obviously we possessed at that one point in time, and looked through that to see if there was any evidence to support if he met with somebody or if he was having, issues somewhere, or any sort of literally anything to lead us in the right direction, right? So we go through phones, we look at video game consoles, Xboxes, PlayStations, Nintendo Switches were a thing in this particular case.
Emails,
cell phone data records. I heard the FBI guys say EDR a lot, which I'm assuming stands for electronic data request. And they along with some of our detectives were looking into Verizon records, T-Mobile, like anything that you could possibly think of, we were looking into. So that's kind of the digital trail we followed.
On that, just was talking about the searchers, and there's a couple things, we end up the next morning calling, because of the weather, it's calling out our new command unit, our mobile command unit, which if you go to Facebook, excuse me, if you go to Facebook, you can see a picture from inside where the search and rescue teams, and I've got to give hats off, and I hate to call out because I'm scared I'll miss somebody.
Yes.
But I do know Mooresville Fire. First thing that morning I spoke with Mooresville Fire. Iredell Search and Rescue was out there. They're the one sort of was initial. We've got Iredell County Emergency Management was on the scene. That was a new. Usually we don't have that. That's capability that helped us. I'm trying to remember who all. Cabarrus County. I know Lincoln County Sheriff's Office and Cabarrus County Sheriff's Office and their search teams was here. I believe Rowan and Burke at some point was a part of it. I'm scared to death. Shepherd's Fire, Troutman Fire. I know they were there. There again, Mooresville. But there was a lot of people. And at any given time, we probably had 75 to 100 and some people just in searches, just in the woods. And then the Antioch, or I believe that's who it was. The church was there. They opened up their church. Their members got food. We ended up having a food truck show up. I had more businesses, and I wish I can remember them. I know Sheets, Run In, one of the good restaurants. And if anybody remembers the name, if you'll post it in the comments. I can't remember. We had so many requests, and I can't remember who all showed up to bring food, make sure they had a meal. And that's unbelievably helpful.
Right.
Because, no matter what, these searchers are out in the woods, they're walking, they're getting hot and sweaty, and then they're stopping to get new coordinates. So they get cold. And then you've got cross creeks. It's not like we're in a desert. So
right.
We do have a lot of things, and, we got to worry about fatigue on that side, injuries, and you know, I did see, and y'all jump in here anytime. This is just my former dog handler days. Is we had a lot of people offering to say, "Hey, I can come walk this property. I can bring my foal. I can bring my horse. I can bring my dog that knows how to find little kids because he loves them." It's not the fact that we don't want that help. It's the fact that when we're also we've got a sterile environment pretty much except for our searchers. And the dogs. And we know how most of these dogs are trained and certified, so we know what they're going to do. We're able to set up grid patterns. So if they get contaminated, that's done. But in addition to that, we also know that home hunters and people have game cameras. So we're constantly asking the public for, if you see something, let us know. Well, if they're searchers, we know where they're at. But if we get somebody down 400 acres away and they're just out walking with their dog because they love kids and they're going to help track in this section, we have to go investigate those.
And I'm glad you mentioned kind of the cross-contamination of evidence, right, in terms of tracking and everything else. That goes with the digital footprint, too. If I know that Darren Campbell has a Facebook page and I don't know where you are, I might go to Meta, who, you know, is over Facebook, and say, when's the last login for Darren Campbell's Facebook page? And if your uncle logged into your Facebook page trying to be helpful, then we might show up at your uncle's house and say, why did you log into Darren's Facebook page, right? So that can be a problem in cross-contaminating stuff like
And
that.
one thing we noticed with this, and most people I don't think nobody really did it, I don't know, to cause problems or distract from what we're doing, but there'd be rumors, and rumors would be posted as, I spoke to somebody, well, once we found out, they didn't know nothing about the case. And we've seen some very famous people post things like, basically made a comment, the FBI thinks that pedophiles had kidnapped him or whatever, Roblox, Fortnite. They alluded to those apps. We never said that.
No.
Right.
And I think you have the folks that are out there that are trying to help, to be an extra set of eyes, set of ears, but we have a strategic plan going out there. You had a lot of people on the ground, boots on the ground with dogs, but behind the scenes, you had another group of folks who were also looking at your digital evidence, making your phone calls, search warrants. There's all types of other investigative matters being conducted.
Yeah, and I'm going to get in when the FBI and the way there was so much going on for them the first few days. I'm trying to keep it a little bit in order, but you're right, and that's the thing. But the other one is, I've got to give hats off, and I usually don't, and I should more often, is credit to the media as well. You know, because we would put something out, then immediately share it on their Facebook, put it out there, then it just gets so much traction. You know, we were up there at some point 2,000 and 3,000 shares just on a simple post, but we were getting information back from everywhere and people wanting how to help, and that's a good place to be. I mean, especially the way we didn't know what had happened with this. So how much information did y'all have to filter through just on our app, sending messages in through our app?
Man, so I was not a part of that little email chain until this particular case.
Then we got you added onto it. I do appreciate
made sure that
you
you
can
were
thank
added on
Adam
that
for that.
So I was added onto that, and my goodness, I fielded 3 or 4 emails within the first hour or so. I remember speaking to one lady in particular that provided information that, quite frankly, had little to do with this case, but it's still, you know, something that we'll listen to. Anyone that has or had information, we would at the very least listen to, you know, and entertain. But yeah, I got a lot of that, and I got a lot of phone calls through emergency communications that were forwarded to my phone with people that may have had something, you know, even if it's something as small as, well, I saw a red car in the neighborhood that I thought was suspicious or that was odd. Okay, was there anything distinguishing about it? Was there a sticker on it? You know, we'll look into that, right?
And I want to get in a little bit how much, and I won't get much into it because it ended up not being nothing, but just the thoroughness of this. When we was working command bus, we actually got a description or what we thought was a black vehicle in the area. That's the only information we had. You'll know what I'm saying. And we were able to enter that into a camera system. Then was able to track that to a rental car. Then was able to track the manufacturer to track the car to find out where this person was. Now, in the end, it ended up not being connected, but it's something we had to follow up on. And we ended up making the stop just outside of Buncombe, or 2 hours away.
So it's funny you say that, because simultaneously while you were doing that, I was using camera systems to track every car that matched that description that came through in that time frame, which is about 141 vehicles, just in an hour or so time frame. And that was very difficult to kind of weed through.
So, and this is just our second set. I mean, and we're talking about that's how much effort goes in. And listen, it's not just this. It's any case that shows the evidence potential that something. I mean, we do have certain people that may run away, may just not want to be home, adults and juveniles that leave 9, 10, 12 times. I'm not saying that we're not concerned, but that's got to be where That's a pattern.
Correct.
This was unknown. This was totally new.
Yeah.
Right.
And Sheriff, I'd like to ask you a question, being a canine handler,
Uh-oh.
like the importance of, in a search like this, you have dogs on the ground and scent tracking and trying to locate someone, the importance of tracking and not having any contamination.
You're right, and sometimes they'll use scent discriminating dogs, which basically is like mostly your bloodhounds, and they can do scent articles. Is what I meant to say. From a piece of clothing, they can lock in on that if they're trained properly to track that scent with those rafts. That's how they do it. So it's a lot easier. And it's just like finding your way. If you're standing in the middle of the woods and somebody with a flashlight shine at you, you can go from point A to point B fairly easy. But if you got 500 shining at you, it's hard to decide which way to go. And that goes for the dog. These people they train all the time in all kind of adverse weather, temperatures. So we have to put a level of trust in those handlers and those dog teams. And obviously ISR, emergency management, and these search teams, they train with them all the time. So when we put them in an area, we say clear it, then we know within good high level of confidence that they've done a good job at that. So
Right.
we've got about 15 minutes. We're going to take our second break.
15
And
seconds.
Oh, sorry, 15 seconds. You're correct. Now it's 9. But we'll be back in about 3 minutes. Send us some messages on Facebook. We'll try to get to everything we can. Well, everybody, welcome back to the Good, the Bad, and Guilty. See, I told y'all, we're already over halfway.
I know time's flown by. We still have so much to talk about.
I know. Hey, I do want to remember, now listen, snow's coming like 29 inches, plus 12 inches of ice and stuff. So make sure you go get your boots, your coats, your gloves, anything else you need other than the snow cone maker or snow cream maker at Harrison's. So, no, honestly, we do appreciate Harrison's. They're a great support of the show. We appreciate them sponsoring us. And if you would get a chance to go shop online, go by and visit. Remember, the website's harrisonsusa.com. So, Adam, I know we got a lot to discuss in the last segment. We want to use some other stuff. So, I guess really, I want to hit a little bit. A lot of the questions were, why did we not activate the Amber Alert system? I think both of y'all can answer that. So, whoever, but I mean, we've got certain criteria, and they're very, very, and I don't even want to, there's not enough barriers I could put on this to say how strict they are with the Amber Alert system. Patrick, just off top of your head, or Adam, either one, and I've got them here. I actually went and printed them out.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I mean, there are very stringent requirements for an Amber Alert, and you have to show solid evidence that each and every element is fitting of that system. And with the information we had at the time, and it just wasn't sufficient to proceed with that Amber Alert.
Well, a lot of people think, well, we should, if they've been missing, we should enter. That'd only be about 22 million across the country every day. I mean, I hate to say it, but a lot of them it is. But here's some of the things: missing under 17 years or younger. Okay, we had that. That's great. Law enforcement believes the child has been abducted or the child is in danger of injury or death. We didn't have any reason to believe he had been abducted, and that was some of the stuff. Of course, we still working the case, so I can't get a lot of it. But the child is not to believe run away or voluntarily missing. Abduction is not known or suspected by a parent unless the child's life is believed in danger. Abduction has been reported to and investigated by law enforcement. We didn't have an abduction. Must also have sufficient descriptive information about the child, suspect, and/or suspect vehicle to make the alert useful to the public. And we didn't. So I think, and then of course it goes on and on and on. And
Well, I think you look too. Most of the time, if you're going down the interstate, and you see an Amber Alert come out, you get some information on your phone, a notification. But most Amber Alerts come with what? A tag number.
Tag.
Yep.
We didn't have any information at this point. Now, there's nothing to say that as the investigation proceeded that we wouldn't have got to that point, but luckily he was found before then. But another thing on this one is our partners is prior to even considering having to do an Amber Alert 2 days, 3 days later, we already had billboards across the state with his picture on it. And Patrick, luckily, was on the lines on the weekend getting tips from the FBI for people calling in. So his information was out there on billboards with his picture. That, to me, is a lot more important so the public can recognize him on site.
yeah, and I did forget to give a little bit of credit, and obviously I'm just doing it because it was, we had people on the scene. You got to remember, we're running a search and rescue type thing with all the search teams, emergency management. Joel Hepler, one of our major patrol, was working that. At the same time, Troy Miller was investigating having our people work with the FBI. But I think everybody's asking me, why did we bring in the FBI? Well, it's simple. We've known a lot of these agents for years. I've known their PIO for years. So when I left the scene Wednesday, I believe, Thursday, I can't remember. But as soon as we left the scene, I got a call out of Atlanta and said, hey, would you like the help? And obviously, if somebody offers the help, and we knew him, and I knew the agent, and I knew the person out of Atlanta, said, absolutely, here's what we need. Can you fast track this? So, and when I say fast track, at the same time I talked to the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. There again, it goes back to networks. I've said 150 times that you need relationships built prior to an emergency. So if you do need an emergency, you know who to call to. So, and I've seen the post, and I've had people say, well, why didn't this happen in Rowan? Why didn't this happen in another county? I can't speak for those police chiefs and those sheriffs. I can just know how we handle it in Iredell. And I hate to say it, but I've said it. Well, I have said it, and I'll say it again, but we didn't want to leave no stone unturned until we knew we had to keep going. So on the rural search and rescue side, also the digital side. So FBI calls, SBI calls, said, listen, here's what we can use. Can you access, and Patrick, I'll let you explain, because we also have Elliot, our task force member here.
Elliot Lane.
I just couldn't remember his last name. It slipped me, so I apologize, Elliot. But we invest in that technology and those relationships prior to. So when they called, I'm like, hey, here's what we need you to track down servers, gaming consoles, logins, emails a lot faster than just us here at the sheriff's office can do. Because I promise you, if Reddick or whoever in Washington State has got information we need off of their server, they're not going to listen to us as fast as they will an FBI agent who picks it up. So you want to take it from there, or Adam, you as well?
Yeah. So I mean, we had 2 agents from the FBI actually in-house on computers pretty much the whole time, working with us. As soon as information hit us, we let them know, hey, do you think you can get information from this video game, this website, this social media platform? And they were on it like that. I mean, they were on the phones with people I had never met. Obviously, I heard their voices, but they're saying, hey, I need this on this. Can you get that? Yeah, working it. I don't know how many people were on the phone with them.
And
but
they, that's a great
people.
point. They had their whole team, and I don't know if it's out DC or where, but actually there was a name. It was a cool name. I wish I could remember it because I want to assign something to that. But it was basically what I would like to call Fusion Center. So when we put out that FBI, and Adam, this is where you worked with Shelley Lynch, the PIO for the FBI. Once Patrick, and we'll come back a little bit, it looked like what you think all these telemarketers that's calling you, asking if you got property for sale.
Yep.
They're with headsets, and we got our sex offender registry detectives working with them.
Yep.
And we're running information. It's just like you see on TV. It's wrote on the chalkboards or the whatever boards we got, not chalk, but those erase boards.
Yep.
All the information. And at the same time, we're working other angles. And Adam, you're working with Shelley, who's, hey, I'm going to create this flyer for y'all. Y'all proofread it. We want to make sure we're going to get out nationally. And then to put we want to make sure we got your seal so they know who to call, our information. And then at the same time to get put up on every billboard across the state. And I got to give Randy Marion Chevrolet, as a private business owner, jumped right on it like that and put it up on their billboards as well. So either one of y'all.
If you were driving across the state, Wilmington to Cherokee, across the state, you probably saw a billboard, and the FBI was crucial in making that happen. And I can't thank them enough because they got the word out, and the Amber Alert wouldn't have been up that fast. I can assure you of that. And working with Shelley, she great. You can tell that this isn't their first rodeo. Yeah. They are experts.
And you got to remember the Amber Alert. You're right. It would have went off. It'd set your phones off, and you'd have seen it on the LED, but it wouldn't have been those.
Right.
It wouldn't have been the presence of the billboards completely or all the time repeating themselves.
Right.
Well, and the FBI, they have resources across the country, across the world. So if they needed somebody in Washington State to go pick up the search warrant and give it to Reddit, they could call the FBI office there and go do it. So their help was crucial.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean,
I was more wanting to go back. It's like you say, it's kind of hard to explain how much them and and we'll get a little bit, I don't want to forget the highway patrol. I'm trying to remember everybody. We had so many people helping us, using the helicopter the last day.
It's borderline impossible, like you said, to thank everybody that was involved. I mean, we had hundreds of people that were helping one way or the other, so.
And a lot of people,
heads.
And a lot of people that evenings, nights, early mornings, weekends were coming in that typically don't come in those hours because they were coming in to help find Gideon.
Patrick, just let you know, I seen him Saturday as well.
As a matter of
We
fact,
were both at the.
I saw.
Oh, was y'all both there too?
Patrick on the scene. Actually, I was actually coming in to work with Shelley to get more
and you were
information.
actually there.
out.
Now, this sort of getting ahead, but you was actually there Saturday when the call come in that he had been found, or when we found him, he was there.
I was on the way in to work with Shelley. FBI had just approved a $10,000 reward to go out, but we were trying to get that ball rolling. But luckily, as I was on the way in, the call came out that matched the description, and believe that's who it was. And I just so happened to be about 4 or 5 miles away, so I went to the scene.
I probably shouldn't say this, but they probably wish that he was about 15 minutes a little later.
Yeah.
I may have told them that they missed out.
Yeah.
What that?
Detective James and I were literally on.
There's some
that
things you don't
road.
got to tell Patrick, because we was going to. And what you're saying, we was going to have, and everybody that's listening, what we was going to do is we found out we did get approval, which is odd in itself to get approval that fast for a $10,000 reward, but we were going to post it Saturday at around noon because we was getting the final approval. And
me and Detective James driving down the road and heard that come over to the radio, and of course we got there nice and quick. Me and him were the first ones there, and once we made sure everything was okay, you came running in, and I was in the middle of talking to the people that had, called in about him. So, I told him, man, if y'all would have just waited about 20 minutes.
what did they think of that?
They're like, it doesn't matter to us. They're good folk.
Yeah,
So,
you could tell that they were there doing the right thing, and they were very surprised.
And you're right. And listen, I want to say this: we do have reason to believe that we don't believe that. There again, Adam, you probably get me. We don't think he was there the whole time we were searching. We do believe that access was gained again by him from a potential roadway coming back into our search zone. And I know we've only got about 45 seconds. So
we can say real quick. Patrick and I were on the scene and we were talking, and we know that you can use a K9 to track to look for an item. But what if you were able to reverse track?
And we did.
And also, you got to look if there's any contamination along the way. It might throw your scent off. But from what I was told, we had success on a reverse track, and we're looking for potential evidence along the way that may be somebody out there through some. There's something. Well, we had indication from the canine that he'd walked quite a ways to where he had got to, and I'll leave it at that. But
All right, we got about 10 seconds left. We'll be back in a minute. We got to talk about the news. We just posted the thing. If you can go look at a video from a break-in. We'll come back, talk about volleyball, and wrap up this last little bit of this search. Yes. Welcome back to the good, bad, and guilty. Good, bad, and the guilty. I'm sorry. CJ over there sort of throwing and said, we're not going to have our music. It's got some technical difficulties. So I said, hey, let me know when you come back in. He goes, now. So we're back. All right, we're on our last little segment. Patrick.
Yes, sir.
From investigator, and Adam, you from an attorney. What else do you really, as far as the search, I did want to throw out the last thing we did after we used a lot of drones, and obviously we're all about safety of pilots and drones and the technology, which is the reason you don't see a lot of helicopters flying a lot of time. But I will say this, even start to finish, North Carolina High Patrol, First Sergeant Hall, which has been on the show with us, sent their troopers to help us with the perimeter. And then Friday, we contacted the helicopter to come and make their rounds, to make sure we had human eyes on everything we could. And then, obviously the temperatures were still cool. But, one thing's important, we never broke down the total search. Perimeter, our patrol guys, our dogs, our drones, we still maintained that night. And then luckily, there again, the next day he was found, and, obviously we alluded to what we think happened there. And
But there's no stone left unturned with it.
that's correct.
The best thing that could have happened happened, and that's all that matters.
And that is, and he's back home safe. Patrick, there will still be evidence come forward, back from our searches and things. We're still working with the FBI. We may never know exactly
Right.
what all the circumstances are. We'll try our best, but it's ultimately up to, I guess Gideon's the only one that really knows. Right. So, but I want to say before we move on, thanks to everybody, the community, The groups brought food to the office. Golly damn, I'm scared to death going to admit, Mooresville, Troutman, Shepherds, and all of our fire departments have volunteered. Emergency management, our search and rescue, Rowan, Cabarrus, Lincoln County, I believe Burke County. I know I'm gonna miss somebody, but everybody that come to help, it's a time to come together, and really it shows a lot of caring and love for a member of the community, 14 years old, that these people come out not knowing anything, not knowing the family or anything. So we were very fortunate and blessed that we had the outcome we did, because a lot of communities and a lot of families do not have that outcome. And as we was watching the Center for Missing and Endangered Kids, there's so many things. I kept seeing updates. There was this young girl out in, I believe, New Mexico or Arizona, that had been posted prior and was found in a well. I mean, everything's going through your head, but a great outcome. And again, I want to thank the media, all the shares, and the people for the shares, because that was instrumental in getting word out. Right. And I hope we set a high bar for everybody else to follow if they're missing persons. This was a little bit different than a normal, simple missing person, but it worked out well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, anything else y'all want to say about that before we move on?
No.
Good job, guys. Good job for everybody. And not, like I said, all of our investigators, detectives, patrol, jail, everybody.
Everybody had input.
Everybody had input. So, before I want to hit one real quick, we have the Iredell County Sheriff's Office Athletic League volleyball registration is open. It'll be open through Monday the 2nd at 2 o'clock, they say, but I think we will try to fit anybody we can up until as late as possible. So you can go online, you can look on Facebook, you can send us an email, whatever you have. It's open to girls and boys, 9 to 15, 7 regular seasons, and I should have had that on Vibrate. And we'll have 7 regular season games and tournament. And some of the questions we do try to get everybody to play back-to-back. If you have 2 games that day, we don't split them 1 at 8 and 1 at 1. We try not to. We try to discourage any travel teams that want to play together for just practice. We don't do that. We want these kids to have a great time. Thanks to Iredell Statesville School Superintendent and the board and the school, State Senior High, for allowing us to use that facility for our games. They don't charge us a dime, and it's great to have. This now, what, about the 10th year? I think we're going.
It's been around for a while.
It's been a while. We're at about 400. We've actually had about 400 or more kids. I think we've already had over 300 sign up. I could be wrong, but if you will, and we do need coaches. So if you're interested in being a coach, send us a message, really, or come by.
And you can go to Facebook. Go to Sheriff's Facebook app or Facebook page and scroll down. It's the very first thing pinned at the top. You can't miss it.
That's good. And Adam, I think you've been working on this a lot, and I know you've been thinking. We just posted a picture. There again, it seems here lately we've been in the news from here to California, but basically, with the untimely death of Greg Biffle and his family, obviously that was a big thing. And then on the 7th, I believe, I cannot remember exactly.
I think it was reported to us on the 8th.
They reported to us on the 8th.
On the 7th.
That's right. Investigators have been working nonstop, and it's basically a break-in at the home where approximately $30,000 in cash, 2 guns, and some NASCAR collectibles were taken. So we've been working with one of the camera companies because there's an issue with some of the cameras, and obviously we have located some footage. Was able to work with them, and we just recently put a post up. So if you'd go look and
please go look. Pull up another browser on your computer and look, and just so everyone knows, we're showing you a little video that we have. That's not all the video we have. So we're just looking for public's assistance in identifying a person that you see there. Even if you can identify article of clothing, any identifying features, it'd be super helpful to give us a call. Let our detectives know any leads so they can follow up.
Well, and I'm going to say, before you even look at it, the faces, it's the eyes, the upper nose. We can tell pretty much, my assumption, unless the guy's really got eyebrows really worked on. It does appear to be a female dressed in all white. And one thing from those that we know, and if you can't see it, just to bring your attention to it, she's also in, I think it's in the post, but she's in the house from about 10 to several hours. And she's on a cell phone. And she wanders the house, but she's covered. Her mouth, all you see is a nose and eyes. So concentrate if you think. You send us a message through the app. You can send us through ICSO info on Facebook. Get us that information. It's totally, you can remain anonymous as much as we can, but you can send the app. You don't have to add your name or nothing. We'd love to have that information.
Yeah, if you have a name, it might be a name we're already looking at. Any help from the public is beneficial.
And we're so dependent with social media and the public because we can work these cases, and obviously investigators try to work it best we can. And you know, we just need the help from the public a lot of times. And, you know, Iredell's a big county.
Yeah, and in this case, I mean, the tragedy behind it, the nationwide coverage.
And the
this
nationwide
is-
name recognition.
Right. This is concerning for our community, for the county, for the country. Something like this happens, it's very tragic, and they're then victimized after it happens. And this is something we need to have answers to.
And that is, I mean, you know, that's the old days of people watching obituaries and trying to break in house. You know, there again, if you do try that in Iredell, we usually have a fix for that. So if you do have funeral, we do try to do things for the families, make sure they're protected, because we do know sometimes you want to give the dignity to your loved ones, and you post it in the paper, you post visitation times. But when you do that, what does that tell a criminal mind?
Right.
Most likely when somebody is not supposed to be there, but we got plans for that. So we take care of that best we can.
Yep.
So, all right, the last, well, not really the last, depends on how much time we got and how fast y'all talk about this, but we got to say congratulations to Jason Fleming. Jason Fleming, which is a former North Carolina Highway Patrol officer, retired, was working down at, I believe, Cottle Creek.
That sounds right.
SRO, which, just for the record, if you're from SRO and you listen, Jason put in for this transfer. He needed to come back a little bit further north, but he is our new college resource officer. We've had one. The position was vacated, so Jason will be assigned now to Mitchell College. Dr. Brewer and all the fine people over at Mitchell. A lot of experience, and if you see him, tell him hey and hello and introduce yourself. But in his position, it just happens to be the way it is, retirees. But we got Billy Martin, who's a former sergeant with Highway Patrol that I've known for years. Was a bailiff, been working with us for about 3 years. He's going to transfer down to Cottle Creek and be the new SRO. So if you see him, welcome. It's on Facebook. You can see the post about it, and it's a good move. So it's good we got SROs in all of our schools.
They both love kids. Jason's familiar with the college, which is great, so he can go in and jump right in.
He'll do a good job. And you know, his wife has been over there before. Jason's very familiar. A great board of trustees over there from Mitchell College. He knows all them familiar, so it's a good fit. It's really going to be good. So, Adam, we got about 3 minutes. Or Patrick, what's usually we're about wrapping up, but now we got about 3 minutes extra. Anything going that y'all need help with, or how's Special Victims Unit going?
Special Victims Unit's doing great. You know, obviously when these sort of situations with missing juveniles come, it's all hands on deck. Still working
at the same time, working the other cases.
Exactly, and that's, I think, one of the biggest, most challenging things is, you know, obviously it's all hands on deck on this case, but we still have to work other cases too, right? So, you know, we just had another case that was real popular on Facebook. We're working that case. And we're on top of that.
And that was from last night.
And we're already on top of that.
You know what? I'll go ahead and address that. I know that basically what it was a video that had, I think it was you correct me if I'm wrong, 2 years old.
I believe so.
Showed a young child, I just estimate 3 to 4 years old, maybe younger, being spanked and then threw around.
Correct.
Y'all were able, and I'll give credits to y'all and whoever else worked it, within approximately a little over an hour, was already able to identify the suspect. We're talking to him. There's a lot of stuff we need to find out, like where it happened at and things of that nature. But we do have him, and I think, have we located the child? Still,
I don't know that, but I do know that case is moving forward very, very quickly on our end.
You know, and this is a good point, Adam. You can sort of jump in and you see how it is. You know, our budget time's coming up, and obviously I'm very conservative when it comes to budget. We try to keep our budgets below the inflation rate. We will, but staffing is something to recruit good officers. We're going to have to work on this year. We're staffing at about less than 1 per 1,000 comparable to our other agency, which is 2.5 to even more. And then Moore's about 1 to 9,200. Right. So when you have an emergency like we did with Mr. Ferguson or Gideon, you know, we've got to pull from those resources. At the same time, still being able to provide. We'd have had a robbery, a homicide, another missing person,
right?
A lake patrol operation. You know, we've got to make sure we have to keep our staff. And so I hope the citizens understand where we're at. Our crime rates have shown it, even with some of the lowest staffing rates anywhere near us. And some will start building.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not just answering calls, it's the proactive measures that are in place to reduce crime and things, getting drug dealers off the street. And we got units that do that. I mean, it's a full-time job, getting drugs off the street. We need more of those folks.
And that's such a nexus to other crimes.
Exactly.
Sure does.
You know, and so, well, that's some of the changes. That's some of the things we're going to work on now. You know, it's almost getting budget season here, believe it or not, in February. We'll be starting to build out our budgets, and you know, I think we've earned the trust of the community, and we want to make sure that we stand there. And
yeah, and I think when the personnel and the equipment too, everything we've talked about so far today has involved video. So
that's right.
In today's world, in today's times, you need the equipment.
And one thing, Adam, I about forgot totally off this week with the snow coming on, make sure people understand. If it's a simple burglar alarm, we may or may not. We're going to try to get there. Remember, use technology. You got cameras. Look at them, see us. If it's a loud music call up on Barnum Mill Road and there's 25 inches of snow, I don't know if we'll make the loud music call. Please check on your neighbors, check on your pets. Make sure if you look, we're looking at widespread power outage potentially. A lot of people may not have wood heat. They may not have gas. They just check on your neighbors. You can send us information through our app. But more importantly, 704-878-3100 is our non-emergency number. Have your fire department's numbers looked up so you can call them directly. All the fire departments will be staffed, I'm sure. And we hope everybody stays safe this upcoming weekend. And we will be back here next week, same time at 3 o'clock, if we can get our sleds and forward drives in gear.
Sounds great.
Thank you. Thank y'all for coming.
Yes, sir.